I just think, you have to have purpose, and you have to have a positive attitude no matter, what's being thrown out at you. So, as my grandfather used to say, and this too shall pass, day by day. But, as hard as it is, and it is as much as it can wear you out, I think just being ready, prepared with a positive attitude to work through it is just absolutely critical, more now than it's ever been.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the Made in America podcast, COVID-19 special edition. I think it's really an important time for us to be reconnecting with the manufacturing community and really sharing best practices and what we're doing. Obviously, this is an unprecedented time, and we're all kind of learning on the fly and learning new things to do. So I appreciate you spending some time to join me and share what OK Industries is up to.
Pleasure to be here.
Listen, we know you've been on before. Let's just do a quick, what do you make and why do you make it, so the audience kind of reconnects with OK Industries and what you guys are making and sort of the size and scope of the organization.
So OK Industries, we're a contract manufacturer, mostly in the metal space. So stamping, machining, laser processing, automated assembly, 2 operations in Connecticut, 1 in New Britain and 1 in Berlin. And we also have an operation down in Costa Rica. We're about 90% medical device, so those are our main customers. So that's why we are remaining open as an essential business. Most of the parts we make it save people's lives. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. Great place to be an essential business. So let's just start with that. How is sort of demand and production capacity going for OK right now? Have you been able to keep everybody kind of employed in New Britain and in Berlin, and what's kind of the impact there?
We've seen some people that are going out for myriad reasons. We haven't had any, knock on wood, any confirmed cases here, but we're certainly expecting that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But monitoring absenteeism, monitoring supply chains every single day. We have a COVID-19 response team made up of senior management, human resources, supply chain, facilities, and a few others that basically divide and conquer. And everybody's got everybody really has new jobs right now. And but seeing some impact in terms of orders. We are definitely seeing some softening, but I think that we're probably better off more than most, just based on the products that we're serving. I surely know some people that are in some other industries that are hurting. So I think we're doing the best that we can.
Yeah. What are you guys doing? You had mentioned that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, just by the numbers. What are you guys doing to kind of keep the workforce safe and keep the facility open, right? I mean, as you mentioned, you guys make products that save people's lives. So it's critical that we want to keep the workforce safe, but at the same time, we got to keep the parts flowing. How are you guys balancing that?
That's a very, very long answer. My answer would be significantly long. I mean, you read everybody about what everybody's doing. I'm sure you guys are doing it as well, but it's just pretty significant. It's really, what we did is really have every single department kind of divide and conquer what's best practices within their own areas. We've even assigned auditors for social distancing as an example, and it's really just, you see it like now we're pretty good. A couple of weeks ago, not so good. People just were not taking it seriously enough. And then also just in terms of requirements from social distancing to hygiene to travel, and we actually made every employee actually sign basically an agreement that they're going to abide by it, because there has to be that accountability piece. This only works if everybody's participating.
That's right.
So those are kind of the key things that we've done so far. I mean, it's just the list of, I think, which everybody else is doing well is, and the guidance that we're getting from a lot of organizations has been terrific.
Are you guys doing anything from, how are you balancing multiple shifts? Do you guys do the gap in between shifts to do cleaning? What are you guys doing from that standpoint?
Yeah, so we do gap in between shifts. We do gap in between breaks. We do gap in between lunches.
Really?
Even where you actually have chairs where people can sit. In operations where you have that are close together, we have plexiglass there that basically in between workers, and we have plexiglass in between when people are actually doing training. So, just really, I think we're doing just about everything that we can given the challenge.
And what do you do in terms of the operation in Costa Rica? Has that been impacted? I mean, obviously this is a global pandemic, not a U.S. pandemic. You have a unique challenge that only some of the listeners do, which is, facility kind of outside the country. What's been the impact there, and how are you guys managing that?
So they have members that are on our COVID response team, and they're on our video conference call every day at 2:30. So they're doing pretty much everything the same that we are. Some of their guidance is a little bit different. It's interesting. They have everything funneling through basically their government. So it's very, very crystal clear what everybody should be doing. Again, we've gotten some good ideas from them as well about what we should be doing.
Do you guys have people traveling? I know normally people go between New Britain and Berlin on a pretty regular basis. Are you guys kind of shutting that down and keeping people kind of dedicated to just one site to reduce kind of spread, or is that just not really feasible given the workflow?
Yeah. So there's only 3 people that can go between the 2 buildings.
Okay.
Myself. Shell, who's our CFO, and then also director of manufacturing, just based on the number of people. And there are people from time to time, if there's a certain manufacturing challenge or engineering challenge that we may, but they need permission from the 3 of us before that actually happens. But other than that, there's basically no people going back and forth at all.
And what about kind of suppliers and like service? Occasionally a machine needs some outside servicing. Yep. How are you guys sort of managing those relationships?
So again, the only visitors that are coming in is if it's actually any equipment or building facility maintenance types of issues. They are coming in. We have very strict visitor guidelines that they have to basically read and sign up for and abide by, even in terms of how they actually are brought into the building, in terms of washing their hands and processes for that. So again, I think we're following all best practices that were provided in terms of how we do that as well.
Wow, that's terrific. Seems like you guys really have this thing on lockdown. You mentioned that in the last 2 weeks, you feel like you've gotten even better than 2 weeks ago. Is that just kind of practice? How do you see it constantly improving? Obviously, we talk sort of offline, and I've seen the evolution of OK Industries through the crisis. What is that coming from? Where are you getting your data from? How are you guys continuing that evolution?
If you think about manufacturing companies are very process oriented. So what we're in procedure oriented. So we're actually implementing new processes and procedures. Then you train people on those processes and procedures, and then you audit to those processes and procedures. So as of today, we'll actually have an audit checklist for the people who are auditing for people for social distancing, for example. So it's really just about monitoring and making sure people that know that this is a change and this is what your responsibility is. And doing it in a way that's constructive, and also, hey, again, the only way this is going to work if everybody's doing it. Sometimes you have the younger people say, well, okay, I'm pretty much immune to this. Even if I get it, I'm not really going to have it. But making them understand, well, you're not going to get it, but the 60 some odd year old or the anti-immune person next to you, they can get it very easily, and they can get tremendously sick or possibly die from it. So you're protecting them as well, and really getting that message across to everybody.
I think to your point on that communication, whether it's educating on the new processes, auditing, or just talking about why it's so important that everybody participates, is so critical. How are you guys executing that communication? Like, what's been the cadence of you communicating to the team, and how have you been doing that so that the team really understands the importance and the changes that are being made?
So we communicate, and we communicate, then we communicate, and then we communicate some more. At least we try to. I mean, we've actually had a few people say, hey, too much info, but I mean, I'd rather be accused for that than not communicating enough. At the beginning, it was a bit difficult because we didn't have much guidance and you had a lot of conflicting information. So we were even just sharing, hey, we're trying to find this out, but we don't know yet. Now it's pretty stable in terms of what the requirements are. And again, it's just through documentation, it's through email. For certain alerts, when we want people to know right away, we have it's called AMG alert. So everybody gets a text message on their personal phones, or hey, go and take a look at this. So we've got a way to communicate things if we need to do that pretty expeditiously. The best way also is just really with the leadership team and management. It's one-to-one time, and really. Basically, our whole kind of focus has been, number one is employee safety, which is number one value in our company anyway, is employee safety. Number two is quality. We provide life-saving components, so we can't let anything change whatsoever in terms of of just the quality of our product. Third is business continuity, which everybody's looking at in terms of getting people in, our supply chain, our IT infrastructure, you name it. And then the fourth one is really managing employees' fears, uncertainty, mental health, and expectations. And a lot of that is how do you communicate that and certain things to them, offering FAQs on, hey, what if certain things happen? And then also just really creating those avenues where people can keep reaching out when they want information. So we've set up an email that everybody can ask questions. We have the old-fashioned way of suggestion boxes. We have HR going up and setting up, very small weekly meetings. We're just here, for a couple of minutes. Say, hey, I'm going to be here. If you need me to ask any questions during first break, this is where I'm going to be. Come and get me. But it's really about providing access as well. It's got to be two-way.
That's really fantastic. Actually, I haven't really talked too much about that, like two-way communication. And you mentioned sort of, email, suggestion boxes and all that. How has your use of technology changed in response to kind of the COVID-19?
Well, obviously, the video conferencing, I think I've used 4 or 5 different flavors of them. So, and I think they all have the pros and cons. But, certainly that's it. Anybody who obviously, like any other company, anybody who can work from home is working from home.
Who do you guys have working from home, Jay?
Certainly all of accounting, all of finance, all of sales. A lot of people on the quality engineering and certain engineering roles are design engineering, if we can, but not a whole lot. I mean, think about it. If we don't have people here hands-on making parts, we're out of business. So that's why manufacturers are a little bit different than other types of companies.
So in terms of so you said a lot, so it sounds like a lot of the office people are home and you have some management in the office. So are you guys doing a lot of your management meetings like on video conference and using like technology to do that to kind of maintain social distancing?
Every single meeting that we have is now video conference. There are no in-person meetings whatsoever.
Wow. So I wanted to touch a little bit about, there's an article in the paper, like it was last week, about what you're doing with the city of New Britain and New Britain High School and New Britain Foundation for Public Giving. Maybe can you share with the audience? I think it's just really awesome kind of what you're doing. Maybe you could share what that is.
Yeah, so we came across a pretty basic way of making face shields, which is one of the key PPEs that is very much in short supply, that's using materials that are fairly readily available, although they're becoming less so. Looking at the need and our affiliation with Hartford Healthcare, and then just also our relationships with other in the city, including the Hospital for Special Care. Hey, do you guys is something that you may need? And they say absolutely. And hearing doctors and nurses, and you can see the fear and panic that they have. So we reached out, we made 2 calls. One was to Superintendent Nancy Sarah, School District of New Britain. Hey, we need a place to do this and looking for volunteers. So before I even finished, she said, absolutely, let's use the high school, we'll use the gymnasium, and getting volunteers is going to be quite easy, believe it or not, because people really want to help out in a time of crisis. That's just human nature, I think. And then we reached out to the Community Foundation of Greater New Britain, to David Obazinski, President and CEO over there, and said, hey, we're looking for some funding, because we saw an email that they were looking, how can they help mobilize the community? I think he had 20,000 within 24 hours. And really that's the money is just to purchase the supplies for the volunteers to actually assemble the face shields. And I think we're at 40,000 now and climbing, but our goal is to make at least 18,000 over the next few weeks.
That's really fantastic. So what's OK's role in kind of helping make this happen?
Right. So OK's role is supply chain, coordinating all the materials, setting up the assembly lines, doing the training, just the overall technical aspect of it and the business side of it. The high school is providing the facility, providing the volunteers, and we've come up with CDC guidelines about how the volunteers are selected and chosen and trained and brought into the facility. And the Community Foundation is taking care of all the funding side. So it's just a great partnership for the community.
That's fantastic. Talk about public, private, government partnership. That's terrific. And when this thing's up and running, how many face shields do you guys think you'll be able to make per day?
Our goal is to probably have about 3 different assembly lines running at one time. So on a good day, we should be doing at least 3,000. So wow. In terms of numbers, Hartford Healthcare, our goal is to get them 10,000. Hospital for Special Care, about 4,000. The City of New Britain, which includes the police department, fire department, EMS, a few thousand for them, and also for some of the surrounding towns. And that's probably just to get started, but that's where we're at.
That's just so terrific, Jason. What a great thing to do. That's awesome. And I can't be surprised, because you've always had kind of that community bent to you. So I'm really proud and happy to hear about that. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the business. What have you guys been doing to prepare You mentioned there's a little bit of a softening. What are you guys doing to prepare to go into that softening and to be ready to spring back, when demand returns?
Well, obviously, our supply chain has not been impacted that much. So, probably in terms of their inventory levels and stuff like that. So we're monitoring that every single day. In terms of absenteeism, we, we have a call basically with our COVID response team every day, 2:30, and we have a dashboard. And that first things on the dashboard are stuff such as absenteeism across both buildings, all shifts, et cetera. What's that looking like? IT. Our supply chain, facilities do a check-in. And so it's really about, kind of now I think we've implemented most of the things to play the defense, but I think your question is a good one. You have to play offense too. And it's really about kind of recognizing from your team, how is our business going to change post-COVID? Because it will end. We don't know when, but it will. But as an example, talk about use of technology. How does this change in terms of how our sales team interacts with customers if you're going to do a design review meeting on a print? What technologies are best available to do that, or should be modified or enhanced to come out of this in a very strong position to do that? On the new business side, in terms of NPD prototyping stuff, we haven't seen any softening, which is a good sign because people they're coming out with new products that we're working on with them, so that kind of hit the ground running when that comes out of here. But again, also about cross training, for some of your key processes and key operations, making sure that you have that in place. But it's something.
It's something. Yeah, I was just talking to someone recently who was saying, they say, may you live in interesting times. We're certainly living in interesting times now. That's absolutely for sure. Well, listen, Jay, I think you've given us so much, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing, for the community, and your willingness to come on here and share your views. Is there anything else that you think was interesting that we didn't talk about or that I didn't ask that'd be good to share with the manufacturing community in Connecticut?
I just think, you have to have purpose, and you have to have a positive attitude no matter, what's being thrown out at you. So, as my grandfather used to say, and this too shall pass, day by day. But, as hard as it is, and it is as much as it can wear you out, I think just being ready, prepared with a positive attitude to work through it is just absolutely critical, more now than it's ever been.
No question about that. And, I just remembered one thing I wanted to ask you. When you first came on the Made in America podcast in 2019, you said you had three major priorities: workforce, workforce, and workforce. How has COVID changed, that priority? Because certainly some of that still needs doing. What are your thoughts on kind of workforce development going forward?
I think right at the moment, the most important thing is making sure that my employees are appreciated and understand everything that we're doing and feel that we're actually doing everything we can for their safety. Just appreciation for being here, because a lot of people, it's uncomfortable for obvious reasons. But you're trying to be the best place where people want to come and work and understand what you're trying to do and do it in the right way.
That's fantastic. Jay, thanks again so much for being on. I really, really appreciate your time.
All right, Ari. Take care.
All right.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thanks so much for tuning in. I definitely want your feedback and hope you subscribe. But what I want the most is to build a community where we learn and grow with each other. I hope you're getting a lot of value out of the time we're spending together. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.